Good afternoon. Welcome back to Senate Education. It's a couple minutes after 3 p.m. on Tuesday, April 13th, and we are returning to our work on S100, which has been a collaboration between Senate Ag and Senate Education, the Universal School, possibly breakfast bill. And so senators know I spent part of my morning in Senate Ag, just walking them through high-level overview of what the direction that our work was going in. They, I think, have some suggestions, as does AOE, which we'll hear from Mr. Desmarais. When we can get to a point of agreement, as well with the Senate Appropriations Committee, we'll take a vote, which I anticipate might happen Thursday or Friday. Senator Starr is talking to Senate Appropriations this afternoon on this this approach that we've talked about. And in short, for those just joining us, this would take the necessary funds for universal school breakfast off of the Ed Fund and put us on, put together a working group that would hopefully get us to the point of universal school meals. And I think the other piece of this that I believe has been lost in all of these discussions, Mr. Desmarais, is the tying this to local farms. And when I had a lunch meeting with Senator Pearson, it sounds like that may have been removed from the bill.
That was removed by Senate Appropriations.
Okay. So I know, speaking with Senator Pearson, and again, I don't want to get into ag work, but I, for one, that's an important piece of this bill, tying it to local farms, making certain that we are creating markets as much as we can through this work, which will give a level of predictability, as I've said, to local farmers. People may move in, open up a farm, knowing that they would need to resource schools in this way. So I'm hoping that in our final version, and Mr. Desmarais, I'm going to take the bold move of asking you, if you wouldn't mind, restoring that language, and I will talk with Senator Starr. And in fact, maybe you just wait until I talk to Senator Starr, but it's my hope that we might restore that language. I also think it will help balance the bill out a little bit more. In other words, this really was an ag bill because that was the language. And if it's not there, it really completely becomes an education bill. So with that, Senator Terenzini.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Kim. You can tell me to go back on mute if I'm premature, but
Not at all.
What you just told me makes the bill, to me, much less attractive. I mean, I've already, as a senator, been having a hard time swallowing how we pay for it. And one of the most attractive parts of the bill was, so we're not only helping feed kids, but we're also buying food locally and supporting local farms and local producers and so on. And
Yeah,
you know, it just makes it much less of a bill in my mind if we extract such an important component to it. So I'm glad you said to, let's put it back in, because that's really important.
thanks. I appreciate that. It is important, and for at least all the reasons that I think I mentioned, and others. And I think our colleagues will find important. Mr. Desmarais.
Just to mention that was stripped out because that was a grant program. So that costs money, obviously, to do grants to encourage schools to buy more local. And it was stripped out in appropriations because it was a money issue for them. So that's why it's not there.
Senator Lyon.
Certainly Ag supports it because it was in Ag's bill. So it's really an issue for Senate Appropriations, I believe, more than Senate Ag.
Thank you.
So I agree that it should be in, and we have a lot of money coming from the federal government. So if there are appropriate guidelines for ARPA funds, maybe we save general funds for this program initially, at least. But I agree with Senator Terenzini that this is a really key part of the bill. So I say we test the waters yet again.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it should be in the bill. In other words, I appreciate that Approps pulled some of it out and may address it in the budget, but I think we should if this advances, it is going to just make it a much more appealing bill to a number of our colleagues that might be excited about the marketing piece, the building of markets. Okay. So, Jim, if you don't mind taking us through where we stand right now with S100, that would be great.
Sure, I haven't amended it yet because I haven't had your instructions yet to amend it, but I can tell you the reaction of Senate Ag to this language.
Can't wait.
Okay, good. So let me pull the bill up.
Sure.
Gina, can I show the screen?
There we go.
Great. Okay. Okay. So for the record, Jim Damer, that's console. We're going through this draft 2.2, which we've been through before, and there's no changes from before. So I don't propose to review let me do, but I do want to go through and point out the areas that Senate Ag reacted to. And the first area is down in this grant program. So this is a language that creates funding from the education fund to pay for universal school breakfast. And the way this is currently drafted is, you'll see that it says that the agency shall reimburse each school district that may available school breakfast to students at no charge for the cost of each meal actually provided in the district during the previous quarter, to the extent that cost is not reimbursed through federal or other state funds. So what this is saying in this draft is that that the cost will be reimbursed if the school district spent, for example, $1 on school breakfast. That's probably too low, but let's just say $1. And received federal funds or state funds for the folks that received free and reduced, then that cost of $1 would be reimbursed to the school district. So it's based on the school district's actual cost of providing that meal. And Agency of Education said that it's hard to base it on the actual cost of providing the meal because the cost will be different for every school and school district. So therefore, from an administrative standpoint, it's difficult to use the actual cost. What they prefer is a different method that gets you pretty much to the same place. They recommend, and I have language on this from Senate Ag from an earlier bill, the reimbursement be the difference between the paid cost and the cost for a reduced price lunch. And what that means is that, just to back up, there are 3 different types of reimbursement now. There's reimbursement by the feds for free lunch, 100% federal money for that. And then at 185% of poverty level, you have reduced price lunch. So for students who are receiving reduced price lunches, usually the parents pay the difference, but the state pays that amount on behalf of the parents. So you've got that state funding there. So you've got federal funds and the state funds to make up for reduced price. And there's a category called paid lunch. And paid lunch is the amount the federal government provides to school districts for students who are not eligible for free and reduced. And that payment goes directly to the school district, not to the student or the parent. So if, for example, the paid reimbursement level was like 40 cents per meal, you'd be using that as your starting place. So you take the paid amount for a meal minus the reduced price amount for a meal, and that would be the reimbursement for universal school meals. I say it gets you kind of to the same place. The difference between the two methods is with this language here in this draft, the school districts would not be responsible for the cost of universal school breakfast because their actual cost would be reimbursed, whereas the method that AG recommends and AOE recommends is with the paid approach. It's possible their full costs won't be covered, but most of it would be. So it's a different method, slightly different result, but that's the change being recommended by the Ag Committee and by AOE. I think it helped you to understand this. It's hard to understand this, I think, without seeing language. So when we update this draft, if you want to see this version of it, I can put this language in, and it'll be, I think, easier for you to understand with the words in front of you.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
So that's the first change. The second change I recommend is, let's find it. So we go up to fine. Okay, this isn't their change. This is actually my change. Section 5 requires a school district to count time spent by students consuming school meals during class as instructional time. I have this as section law, but this is a permanent, this is not a temporary thing. So this should be moved into a statute. So if it's okay, I would move that into the statute on the next draft. This tax letter information is not relevant now. I won't go back and explain why it may have been, unless you want me to. But Rosie confirmed, Rosie Kruger at AOE confirmed that she can implement universal school breakfast for the fall of this year, and she believes schools can too. So there's no reason to delay the effectiveness by 1 year, and therefore you don't need this section 7. That would be coming out. Then section 9, this is the staff position to support the rollout of universal school breakfast, and it has $100,000 appropriation from the general fund. And the Ag Committee asked about the AOE's proposal to restructure the way they regulate home school, because they have recommended to restructure the way they regulate homeschool with free up resources, and thereby they could use that free up resource to pay for this position rather than having a separate appropriation. So they asked that this committee reconsider the agency's proposal around homeschool. And then on the task force, they wanted to have a bit more concrete direction for the task force. So rather than having to make recommendations generally, they want to put a timeline on this and say that the intent is to make universal lunch available to all students at no cost within 5 years. Yeah, to make that the charge rather than leaving the time frame more open. And that was it, really. That was the reaction. They were, I think, other than that, they're very accepting of this language. And with those changes, that's all they had to suggest.
awfully nice of them to approve of that, given that it's no longer really their bill, since they've taken out all the agriculture pieces. I will put a little quick thank you note in the mail to Senator Starr for his kindness later today. So committee, general reactions. My instincts are to talk to Senator Starr later, make sure that we can get the agriculture language back into this, and look also at whatever language, actual language is needed in the bill that Mr. Desmarais would draft, and maybe look at it again tomorrow or Thursday, depending really, Jim, on your schedule. I know you've got a lot going on, and this is something that, again, I don't anticipate the House taking up this year. So, but I would still like to move something.
Yeah, so I've been asked to testify again tomorrow morning in Senate Ag with an update of this bill. So I think my testimony, they asked me to be in there. I can just tell you the time. If I can get to my calendar. Tomorrow at 9:15.
Okay, and I'll touch base with Senator Starr a little bit about that as well. Senator Lyons?
So I'm just thinking about the pathway this bill takes.
Yes, please.
So after it leaves here, it will go back to appropriations?
It's been ordered to lie, so I think
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
it's just it's an amendment on the floor. And but
your question's an excellent one, and I think if Senator Starr gets the gang from appropriations, gets their okay, then I think this is an amendment that's endorsed by the three committees, and it's a strike all, and we would bring it to the floor, and see if we can get somewhere with it. Does that help?
yeah, absolutely. I guess the only concern that I would have, and will probably be up to Senator Starr, is on the grant piece for the farm to school. But
I think
I mean, without that, it's just.
Yeah, no, I can't agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Without that, it really becomes completely an ed bill. And, and it might be that we just make, we just wait on it, since the House isn't going to take it up and focus on other things. So let me talk to him about that and see and better understand his thinking.
How much money, maybe Jim, can help me, or Brian or Senator Campion, how much money it was in the bill for the grant program?
There were a number of appropriations around that topic. So I can't give you the total because I can't remember the total. But for next year, the grant program itself, I think will have about $500,000 on it.
Okay,
And that can't be funded by ESSER. It's not a COVID thing, so it's really a state funding mechanism.
Okay.
And Ms. Parker has joined us from Joint Fiscal. Thank you, Ms. Parker. To Senator Lyons' great question, is there any way that in any way can we tie these to ESSER funds? I respect what Mr. Desmarais mentioned, but again, it's as students, as young people transition out of being at home, but now I'm thinking farms, as we look to economic development and marketing for a business that has in some ways, certainly I think struggled during COVID. Why can these grants not be made to these businesses as they transition to new markets with ESSER funds?
Yeah, I do think it's a really tricky question. And I think it would be a bit of a stretch to make the tie to COVID-19 for those funds. But it is a great legal question. I'm sorry, I wish I had a better answer. I could say yes, but it's a very delicate tie. And I would also say that the Agency of Education, the state set aside is through, they might have another comment on that as well. So
And just to be clear, I'm not looking for AOE funds for this. I'm really looking for economic development funds, economic relief funds, things that are coming through ESSER that are going to our other companies and businesses. And I'm proposing that, you know, as Senator Lyons mentioned, is there a way to tie those? It just, to me, it makes perfect sense. Mr. Desmarais.
I haven't thought about that because I'm not involved in the non-educational use of
Yeah.
federal funds. But we do have lawyers in the office who are involved in that,
Okay.
like David Hall, I think, so we can check with him.
That would be great because, you know, I think Senator Lyons is really onto something here, that this, if it's going to even make it better, and I think, and it matches, this is, we don't always think of farms as businesses, but they're businesses. They're also coming out of this. Farmers markets have been reduced. People, I'm sure, had leftover crops last year, all sorts of hardships. And here we're trying to continue and strengthen, sustain, pick the word, our agriculture community. And if we could tie that to some ESSER business funds, that would be great. So yeah, if Mr. Hall has any advice, that would be terrific.
Okay, yeah.
Great suggestion, Senator Lyons. Anything else on this? Otherwise, Jim, your time in ag, I don't know what to say about it. I guess we could put a resolution in at some point recognizing your work in the ag committee, but I don't think that is enough to actually tell you how much I appreciate it, but I also worry about your time. So that's something you'll have to figure out with folks. But I have heard periodically from our friends upstairs in the Red Room in the House is that they would love for you to somehow get out of that committee to go upstairs. So, but let me know if we can be helpful. That's the way to, I guess, but please let me know if I can be helpful in any way. So
I'll wait in terms of drafting something until you've talked to.
Yes, I'm going to actually talk to the Red Room is the this House chamber is people talked about the Senate as the Green Room. I had to talk to 100 fifth graders about how a bill becomes a law yesterday, and I kept referring it to as the Red Room. Yeah, probably for generations, young people will be talking about it as the Red Room and not the House. But yes, let me talk to Bobby. I'll call him as soon as we're finished here, and then I'll let you know where things land.
Okay, good.
Committee, anything else for today? Great. Senator Terenzini, good luck tomorrow. We'll keep you posted on how things go. And also Senators Hooker and Terenzini, I'll let you know as soon as I talk to Senator Ballant whether or not it makes sense to reach out to her. Everybody else, great. We're getting there. We'll get those 2 House bills out probably sometime next week, and eager to see the House's amendments to our work. So thanks, everybody.
Hey, Brian, can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah,
Should I stop live stream first?
that's up to Senator Persley.